Welcome to Capital Conversations. This is our final one of 2025, which is
Crazy.
crazy. And it's just been so great. I feel like getting to do this. It's something that I wasn't really something that I knew how to do. I didn't know anything about podcasting or videos or shows or anything in that realm. And
Mhm.
I feel like it's just been so fun to get to do.
I agree. I feel like it adds something different to our week. Like we've been doing this for 2 to 3 years now, and I feel like
Mhm.
it added something that made our week more exciting because we've been doing the same thing for 2 to 3 years, and where reporting is something new every day, this just added another element that has helped us grow a lot.
Absolutely. I feel like growing too as a journalist is super important because you can get really, kind of like you said, you can get really stagnant. And I
Hmm.
think that having something, also, I really hope that people have taken our show or our podcast and really learned something because that's been, I think, from the first time like you and I sat down and we were like, let's do this. We wanted to make sure that people were actually listening, actually getting what they wanted out of it,
Hmm.
making sure that, we were reaching the people we wanted to, which was not just the people in our little DC bubble that I think a lot of shows do, which is great because that's so helpful
Hmm.
for like staffers who are walking
Yeah,
to the hill every day. Like they want to know what's going
totally.
on. But for us, like, it's not just those Hill staffers we want to reach out to. We wanted it to be for, you know, our friends in our hometowns or our
Mhm.
cousins or things like that. And so and I've gotten really good feedback. I know you have too. And so I
Yeah.
hope that, everyone listening and watching can just keep, giving us that feedback, positive or negative. We love constructive criticism.
Mhm. Yeah. So if
Um,
anybody has any fun ideas for us, let us know. We're
yes,
open to
yes.
anything.
Literally anything. We'll do pretty much anything. So
Mhm.
please let us know. And I think looking back over this year has been just crazy because we started this August,
Yeah, like 4 months ago.
like 4 months ago, but we started it kind of when the house was in a lull, which was really good for us. But it was a lull that came after 8 months of just nonsense.
Yeah.
And now at the end of the year, I just can't believe that we honestly survived.
Made
I feel
it.
like every single
Yeah.
day I was just like, when is this going to be over? End our suffering. I'm so sick of being here.
Yes. And I feel like next year is going to be a lot easier and slower because it's campaign season.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I do think that flip-flopping in between an off year and an on year is so hard because an off year is so much legislative work and so much
Mhm.
in session because they're not campaigning that you and I really had only done like one set of news in an off year, and that was
Yeah.
during the Biden administration, which it was the last few years of the Biden administration, so they weren't doing anything like a massive reconciliation package or
Right.
anything like that. So the first 2 years or the first year of a presidency, plus it being an off year, is just like running at a sprint constantly, and neither
Yeah.
one of us had done a first year of a presidency. So I
No.
think that that was exhausting in
Yeah.
itself, and we are very excited to cover campaigns and all the
Yes,
things
I'm
here because
pumped.
it's going to be crazy. The House is very much in flux for who has the
Yeah.
majority. Obviously, Democrats look like they have a pretty good grasp on the electorate right now, but if you look at numbers wise, Republicans do have a leg up. So I think that it's just going to be a year of craziness.
Yeah, and I was looking at data. Obviously, we've talked about we love our data because we're just freaks. But
Mhm.
I was looking the other day and it was saying that as of now, Democrats are projected to take the House
Mhm.
and win as many as 14 seats, which is not exactly a blue wave, which I feel like that's kind of like Politico speak for like just Democrats sweeping the board. And I think
Mhm.
after what we've seen with the November elections, where we saw, in New Jersey and Virginia and New York City, and then all the special state election races, which not a lot of people pay attention to, but if you're
Mhm.
in, a red state, and your longtime state senator who you may not even know about. But like if that seat flips from red to blue, that's a pretty big
Mhm.
deal. And so I think that that's getting people very energized and excited. And I think that though Democrats are not going to be getting this massive win streak like they think they're going to, I
Yeah.
think just simply because of redistricting, the
Mhm.
numbers, Republicans having Trump in the White House, even though he's not on the ballot, it could drive some people to come out, maybe because they just want to keep him there and keep Republicans in power. So I'm definitely excited to be on the road, especially
Mhm.
covering House seats that are going to be vacant. I think that
Yeah.
that's going to be a really interesting opportunity, especially for members who've been there
Well,
forever, like Jared
there's
Golden or Don Bacon.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of vacancies. We saw
Yeah.
some stats a few days ago that this is the highest wave of retirements that
Hmm.
Congress has really ever seen, and we are only a year into this Congress. We have an entire other year for people to retire. I know that I saw some other reporters like Oriana talk about how she talks to
Yeah.
something like 120 Republicans, and a lot of them were not um, completely set in stone on if they were willing to run again for the next Congress. So I think that
Yeah.
with record retirements already, we're going to see a ton more next year, and that will make the midterms even more interesting.
I'm I think that that story by Oriana Gonzalez from Notice, one of our favorite friends on the Hill, that story was so interesting to me for several reasons because so many members were non-committal. And I think that that's so telling of just like where we are in this political
Mhm.
environment. I think it shows how just exhausted everybody is. So, it could be an end of the year thing where they're like, I don't want to talk about it. It's 2026,
Yeah,
whatever. Because this year just truly was exhausting. No matter if you were a Republican who absolutely loved everything that happened this year or you were a Democrat who absolutely hated everything, there are still people in the middle who were just so tired of just the work that's been going on or lack thereof that I think them wanting to see what's going to happen in 2026 before they make a decision is very interesting. And
yeah,
already we have 45 House members that are not coming back next year, which my
yeah,
story comes out in like 2 days, so read it. But it's it's very telling when you break down like who's running for governor, who's running for Senate. Like
yeah,
those are going to be interesting races for us to cover. I think maybe we never have before, especially if there's member on
yeah.
member races like in Georgia or in
Mhm.
Texas. Like there's going to be, and like obviously Texas for you, that's like your gold standard
Yes.
right there. So you're going to be busy, but
No, people
I'm
were
excited
asking
for
me the other day
Illinois.
if I was going to be covering campaigns in Texas. I was like, yeah, I'll
I
be
better
there.
be in Illinois. I
Yeah,
literally, I so early was like, if I am not covering the Illinois Senate race, I will be throwing hands and throwing a tantrum, and it will not
yeah,
be cute. Because I'm like,
yeah,
that's my home state. I got to do it.
yeah. But I
So,
mean,
yeah.
despite running for higher office or expressing frustrations, I think that the other notable reason that a lot of people are retiring is the rise in political violence. We've talked
Mm.
about that in depth after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Obviously, there was the
That was
assassination
one of our
of,
hardest episodes, I think.
yeah,
I think that was
yeah,
like, and that was something that we talked about because we really wanted to do it because we thought it was important because especially as a journalist, like political violence affects us too,
us
obviously not in the
too.
same
Yeah,
way, but in the way that we have to write about it, sometimes we're there. Like it takes a toll
Mhm.
on just everybody. And I think that was one of our most consequential episodes. And if people have not listened to it, I strongly suggest not just to
yeah.
plug us, but like I
I
genuinely would listen to it because that one was my favorite one,
It
I think,
has a
of
lot of
this
shelf
year.
life and it like just explains a lot from our
Mhm.
perspective and our perspective of having relationships with members. But I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of these members that are heading for retirement that we didn't expect to retire this early. You talked about Jared Golden from
Mhm.
Maine or even Marjorie Taylor Greene from Georgia. Those are
Yeah.
two retirements that came kind of shockingly, and both of them pointed to a rise in political violence and a rise in threats to their family. And this decision to retire came from partially needing to protect their families, which I found really interesting, but also really sad at the same time. I mean,
Yeah.
the threats that members have gotten has like tenfold increased by the tenfold. If you look at statistics from Capitol Police, it went from something like only a couple thousand to 9,000 like in
That's
a term or in
insane.
a Congress, which is so sad and so terrifying
Yeah.
that that's a reason that a lot of members are retiring. I know that Marjorie Taylor Greene got pipe bomb threats to her businesses and her
That was
family, and
awful.
there's just it's been exhausting not only in a way of legislative priorities for Democrats not getting what they want, for Republicans having a lot of party infighting because the
Mhm.
margins are so slim, but then you also have that on top of it. I think that being in Congress has just kind of reached a point where people have had enough at this point.
So now that we're on that subject, I think we should look back and think about like what were our favorite and worst things that happened this year. And
Hmm.
I know that I think my favorite one that happened this year, which I feel like is such a hot take for journalists, is I did enjoy reconciliation. I
Yeah.
enjoyed the fact that it was something new.
Yes.
And it was something that and I'm not saying that from like a policy standpoint, because that's not our job is to
Yeah.
comment whether or not policy is good or not, but we just give you guys the facts and then you decide. But
Yeah.
I think from a journalist perspective, that was a very interesting time for us because it was
Yes.
something new. We hadn't done it before.
Yeah.
It really did expose a lot of deep-rooted issues, both within the Republican conference and the Democratic caucus. I
Yeah.
think that there were a lot of different moving parts that just really challenged me personally not
Hmm.
only having to be up at the Capitol, like I was pulling like 16-hour work days every
Yeah.
single day because they would start in the morning and then there would be caucus meetings at night and then there would be votes that went into 3 a.m. And at the time, I remember thinking like that was just such a drain on my mental and
Yeah.
physical health. And it was like I got sick immediately after. Like I was obviously done, but like in the end, then when you got to like the 4th of July, when it was finally over, it kind of was nice to be there for the end, to be like,
Yeah,
oh, like I
yeah,
just followed like a 5 month or so process.
yeah,
And now we have like such a huge thing that we can say that we did.
yeah.
I would say that
I
that
mean,
was my favorite.
I feel like at the end of it, I was like, I'm tired of this news cycle. I want it to be over. But I
Yes.
do think that obviously, I think that those long days and working overnights allow you to develop such good relationships. And I think that a lot of those members recognize the reporters who stay
Oh,
throughout the night
yeah.
or stay all day or stay these long hours. I had Ralph Norman tell me multiple times, he was like, girl, you never leave here. I was
No, I
like,
know. I had
I
so
know,
many.
I know, Congressman, but it really allowed us to make really good relationships. Like I know
Mhm.
that we were able to catch like the speaker or Majority Leader Scalise one-on-one at 2, 3 a.m. And I just think
Yeah.
that obviously that shows them that we're working hard. I think that it provides a lot of insights into how hard the Capitol Press Corps works,
Yeah.
regardless of what people think of the media landscape or what they think of political reporters or if they put their own bias into it or if they actually are reporting on facts. I think that how hard the Capitol Press Corps worked during reconciliation and during a shutdown just goes to show how much the people up there care and how that isn't really show it's not able to be shown. Obviously, it's not like we are
Yeah.
not the face of Washington, the
Nor
members
do we
are.
want to be,
Yes,
truthfully.
nor do we want to be. But I do think that that was like a really good time for you and I to have our first
Yeah.
glimpse into like having those really close relationships with those members and them gaining respect for us.
Absolutely. And I think that it also kind of, and we've talked about this a lot, just it kind of broke down the barrier between like lawmaker and journalist, and it became just people.
Yeah,
Like there were Republican, like you, I don't know how many people, like Republicans and Democrats, I saw just walking the halls together, just laughing, or like
yeah,
talking with journalists, or like these two people who, like, maybe in a committee hearing would be screaming at each other, but they're like handing each other water outside of the House chamber.
yeah.
And so I think that that was just really fun to see that bipartisanship, because I
Mhm.
think even if you are not paying attention all the time to what's happening in Washington, I think everyone is feeling the lack of camaraderie and bipartisanship and just like decency. And whether or not that was really shown in a lot of our reportings, which maybe that's something that I think maybe the media could do a better job of, is even
Mhm.
though it is easier to write about the dire, awful things that are happening, and there's a lot of them, like finding something that is good and positive, I think can really boost just regular voters' morale to be like,
Mhm.
okay, well, this is something I should still be fighting for. Like, I should still go out and vote. I should
Yeah.
still be in tune with the political world. And so I think that like that also gave us an insight to like, as we've said, we've always wanted to make this show about breaking down lawmakers as if they're people. And that's why
Mhm.
we have lawmakers on our show to talk about that stuff.
Mhm.
And so I think that that was like another one of my favorite parts, has just been like getting to see kind of the glimpses of bipartisanship this year, even though there haven't been a ton, you know?
Yes, totally. And I mean, they really are just human. I remember I was
Yeah.
covering the 1 a.m. rules hearing, and we were at something like 6 or 7 a.m. And I remember one of the members brought in a big bag of Zins, and the other
Oh,
members were so excited. And I was like, this is the stuff that they are just literally normal human beings
yeah.
that are like the people that we are with every single day. That, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, I'm not going to write a story about a member bringing a bag of Zins to a hearing. But it's just stuff like that that we get to see that most people don't get to see. It's just their everyday little human human nature that they have that most people like forget that they're human. Whenever you see them on TV, you're just
Yeah.
so overcome, which is totally understandable by the emotion behind politics and the emotion behind policy because it is affecting the way that people live. But it does often make people forget that these are human beings who have come to develop their views from where they came from or how they grew up or what they've been through. And I think that we get a very front seat view on that, whereas most people get a very secondhand view on it.
Yeah, I agree. What was your favorite moment from this year other than the 1 a.m. Zen meeting?
Honestly, I would have to say reconciliation too. I think
Yeah.
reconciliation was fun. I do always have fun on the joint address or State of the Union. I think that
Yes.
that's always a fun day, regardless of the president, just because I think it's cool. Like there's famous people there. There's every single member is there. I feel like we
Mhm.
get to do a lot of media content. We write a ton of stories. We get to talk to a ton of people. And I mean, it's just like reconciliation. It's just like obviously we have access to these people every day, but it's not every
Yeah.
day that I'm talking to 50 to 100 people. I'm talking to like 1 to 10, where it's
Right.
whenever there are these big things we get. the opportunity to just talk and make relationships with all these people and make a ton of content and stuff that
Mhm.
everyone's reading. Like everyone knows about State of the Union or the Joint Address, and a lot of people are tuned in. So I do like writing about stuff that people are tuned into and actually want to know about.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I think that State of the Union and joint addresses are always
Such a
really
long
fun.
day.
Yeah, they such a long day. I'm like actually thinking about what we have to do next year, and I'm actually tired already. But
No,
it'll
literally.
be that one will be the next year will be interesting because it'll be a Trump address.
Yes.
Which we saw this year already, but it will be like the joint, it'll be the State of the
State of
Union
the Union. Yeah.
next year. So that'll be something that is very interesting. And I think a lot of Republicans will be eager to hear what he has to say because after reconciliation, Trump has even said, well, we don't need anything else from Congress. We don't need any more legislative work from them. We're done. Which is kind of crazy because there's literally 3 more years left. So that's a bit interesting comment to make. And so I think some Republicans, especially in swing districts, are going to be like, all right, well, what's the plan?
Yeah.
Because we got to go back to our districts with something in 26. And then in 28, when you're not up for reelection, when we got to go up again, like we're going to need something. So I think that that'll be good. I'm trying to think of what my worst, my worst one is harder to pick because there's
Yeah.
so many of them.
Yes. I feel
Um,
like, I honestly feel like towards the end of the shutdown, I was like, I do not like doing this
I think the
anymore.
shutdown had
Um,
to be one of the worst.
it was, I will say, it's interesting that it is one of my least favorite things I've ever covered because it was the easiest hours we've ever had. Like we were working from, because the house wasn't in session. And
Yeah,
so
so we were home. We were
they
either
would
home or we
start,
were in the Capitol for like an hour and then we
yeah, they would
left.
start press conferences at 10 and they would be over by 3, 4 at the latest. So like we were never working long days. We were never working late nights because the
We were
house
not keeping reconciliation hours, that's for sure.
wasn't there, but there was just something about it that felt very performative from both sides that
Mm.
kind of made me feel icky about Washington for one of the first times. Like I had really honestly not felt that way, but I just felt like sitting in front of these leaders and these members who were only getting their point across and not being willing to like meet in the middle whenever
Hmm.
we both of us knew that Americans around the like across the nation were hurting and they were just like refusing to meet with each other felt honestly immature and childish, and the fact that they like took 40 something days to reach any sort of solution was
To
honestly just
ultimately get nothing.
it was frustrating to have a front row seat for it and be doing the
Yeah.
exact same thing every day and having no say in it, or like obviously we don't want to say it. Like we're journalists because we don't want to say, but I think that that was maybe the most frustrating and the most honestly disheartening. I feel like I often
Yeah.
do have a positive view of Washington as a whole. We get to see these members, we get to have relationships with them, and we
Hmm.
think more positively of these members than I would say the American public does. But I will say that during the shutdown, I would say that my view of Washington was more of the average American public having distrust and lack of faith in the institution than like any other time before.
Yeah, and I think with like your lack of say, I think I would agree with that because we kept asking questions every single day. And like in the beginning it was like, okay, like, when's this gonna be over? And then it hit like 20 days.
Hmm.
And everyone was like, what the heck? Like, why are we still here?
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the frustrating things for me is that we would go into these press conferences, we would ask questions, and both sides would almost like, I don't want to say
Get
laugh, but
mad at us.
they would either get mad or like
Yeah.
belittle us, belittle our
Hmm.
questions like they were stupid. And it was like,
Yes.
what? You can do whatever you want because you like when you're in front of the press, you can act however you want, free country. But like the whole point of being a lawmaker is that you are there to serve the public and to be kept in check by the fourth estate, us. And so for you not to answer our questions and then to not only belittle us, but then get mad at us for doing our job when you're not doing yours was I think very frustrating. And I think that I
Totally.
agree with you. That was the first time that I not only felt like distrust of Washington and just like disheartened that like this is the state of the country right now, but it also kind of made me like hate my job,
Yeah.
which is
No,
crazy because I've wanted to be a
I totally
journalist
agree.
for a long time. Like before when I was in high school, I wanted to be a journalist and I did it all throughout college. And in college, there was some rough times and stories that I had to cover that really made me uncomfortable or disheartened or whatever. But it wasn't until I came out here that I think I was like, oh, I love this. Like I'm working in the nation's capital. Like
Totally.
what could be better?
Yes.
And then we have a 43-day record shutdown. Like the stories are mundane. You can't do anything because your actual subject is behaving like children.
Like they're
And
literally not speaking. Like
they're not
it was
speaking.
so, I know we talked about this on here, but they would stand in the literally exact same spot at the same podium hours apart, but refuse to speak to each other in the same room. And they would just bash each other at the cameras and at us and then talk about how our coverage was bad.
Insulting the
It was
media while talking to the media
uh
was truthfully the craziest thing that ever happened. Like, members would get up and be like, and the media is terrible at this. And all of us media are like, oh,
you're
okay,
the one that shut down the government.
cool. Yeah, it was just
Mhm.
such a nightmare. And that doesn't go to say that we had it the hardest. Obviously, there were
No,
people like literally going without
totally.
pay.
Yeah.
Lawmakers were trying to fight for that. So, not to sound like we're complaining because this is our
Yeah.
job, but I think I think that
It was
what we're
just so
trying to say is
disheartening.
that it's mirroring what everyone else around the country felt.
Yeah.
So if everyone thought that like us journalists were there just to like plug lawmaker talking points, I can promise you we were fighting so hard to get them to give you guys the questions that or the answers to the questions that you guys had. And
Yeah.
we had those questions too. And I think that I agree. I think that was probably the worst thing to happen.
I
I mean,
wouldn't,
I think factually it was probably the worst thing to happen this year
yeah.
just to everyone. But in terms of like our coverage, I would agree that was just the most like eye-poking of all.
Yeah, I would say like honestly, out of my entire time reporting on the Hill, that was the worst. But I mean, that
Mhm.
was also such a different shutdown. The members weren't there, and that was unlike ever before. Usually, shutdowns are coverage like reconciliation, where you're covering all day, every day until the shutdown
Mhm.
is over, and that just wasn't the case. And I think that that
It was
also,
in the beginning. I feel like in the beginning we were
yeah,
like, "Oh, it's gonna last 5 days."
yeah,
But then we all just started like talking like us and the other journalists and we were like if it doesn't end by this weekend when it was that first weekend where they're like they're going for the record because they all wanted to make a point like everyone wants to make a point nowadays which I think is also
how
one of
many
the things
points made this year?
so many points were made your point was made if a lawmaker's wondering if their point got across it did and you can stop now because it was just so like we get it. And I think
Yeah.
that that's one of the things I was talking to a couple strategists like for just look back over the year stories of just what the heck happened to the House, just Congress in general. Like, why are
Mhm.
we seeing such a breakdown in decorum and rules and such? And I did a story in July about this. And then I went back to a lot of the same members and strategists, and I was like, we're in December now. Has it gotten better? And they all laughed at me. Every single one of them was like,
Like, no.
no. They were like, no, it's not gotten better because everyone wants to make a point. Everyone wants to be on TV and have a talking point. I talked to
Mhm.
one strategist who was like, I worked in, like, he was back in like the 90s when he worked on Capitol Hill. And he was
Mhm.
like, I got my member on Fox once and CNN once in the 6 years that I worked for him. Every time I did that, I was set for the year. I could kick my feet up,
Mhm.
and that was it. And I'm like, oh my God, if a member today only got on TV once in
One.
6 years, they would riot because that's half of their job now, self-imposed, is to
Mhm.
go on TV and yell and scream. But then, like, you go look at their legislation and they've done nothing. And then
Yeah,
it's like, okay, then what do you have to show for it? Like, it's just
totally.
the performatives this year, I think if we just can go broad, the
Yeah.
performative actions this year have truly made it not the best
And I just
reporting
don't
year.
see that decreasing anytime
No. Yeah, no,
soon.
it's not like it's going to be better by January 1st, but
Yes. Well, speaking of January 1st,
yes, so many things to happen. And this
yeah,
was a question that we actually got today from a friend, Celeste. She asked us, she said, what are two things that you guys are looking forward to cover next year? And I feel like we touched a little bit on it, campaigns, but other
yeah,
than
number one.
campaign,
I feel like we would probably have the same too. Like number one is traveling for campaigns.
traveling campaigns, absolutely. It's fun.
Oh wait,
It's
yes.
grueling.
I
It's
have a
a
number two for us that I think will also be yours. Exit polling from 2026.
yes.
Yes.
I'm excited. I love
Yes.
exit polling. 2026 exit polling is going to
Yes.
be honestly not to be dramatic because I feel like every midterm year is fun and I'm sure and I remember in 2022 when the midterms happened and there was a giant blue wave, like that was crazy. And I was present for that. Like I was a journalist out in DC at that point. But I think 2026 is going to be the most interesting exit polling of my
Yeah.
career so far. Or just even like in my years of being alive and paying attention to politics. Like I think 2026 is going to be so interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think it'll be interesting that both are going to focus on affordability. I think it'll be interesting to see
Yeah.
how far people still bring up Epstein files. Like we've seen that be a lasting issue in there are
Yeah.
a bunch of lasting issues. I'm just so excited to see one, what people campaign on, two, what messaging works, because I think that I did a story on this that will come out soon, so go read it. But Obama was such a strong leader of the Democratic
Mm-hmm.
Party that whenever he finished and there was no one nearly as strong as him, and to this day, the Democratic Party has found somebody as strong as as a
Yeah.
leader as Obama. Like obviously, Joe Biden wasn't as strong of a leader of the party. He did not bring
He
people out to
started
vote.
out
Like,
in a good place, and then it
yeah,
just towards the end, I think and people have talked about this and analyzed this, and there'll be books for years to come about it. But
yes,
I think Joe Biden deciding not to step down as early as he did, and instead kind of got like forced out. I think that totally put a damper on Democrats' ability to find a new leader. They could have been doing that at the midterms,
yeah,
like, but they
yeah,
didn't, and so I think that
yeah.
was yeah, quite a
But I mean, no one will compare to Trump. He will never be on the
yeah.
ballot again, and he is truly one of one. I mean, obviously, we had Trump after we had Reagan many, many years ago, but I think that obviously no one who can run in 28 can live up to Trump, and Trump won't be on the ballot again. So those exit pollings are crucial to 28. And I think that finding the leader or who should be the possible next leader of each party will be a big factor of 28, which will come from polling from 26.
Yeah. When I was saying, I actually just said I was wrong. In 2022, it was a red wave, not a
Yes.
blue wave, which I said blue. So sorry to everyone listening. It was I was thinking, I was like, wait a minute, no, because I was thinking about the fact that I will have covered a red wave midterm, and now I'll be covering a probably blue wave midterm, and I
Yeah.
think that I think is going to be a lot more interesting because it's coming from this crazy trifecta that we've had now. Like
Mhm.
I think that is going to be really indicative, and
Yeah.
like that polling is going to be polling is going to be quite interesting. And then
Yeah.
I think the other big thing, like if we could add a third really quickly, is I'm just curious to see what happens with healthcare
Yeah.
because healthcare and government funding, we could just make it short. Like healthcare and government funding are like the two biggest things that are happening.
Mhm.
I also will have a story out about that, so or it might have came out already, who knows? I'll go look at my website. But um the the fact that healthcare and government funding are something that happened towards the end of this year. Next year, it's going to be right away. Like January is going to be a big month,
Hit the
and there's a
ground
government
running.
funding deadline. And people are like, "Oh, is there going to be a shutdown? Is there going to be a shutdown?" We've talked about it at length. Like, probably not. Who's to say? Knock on
I
wood.
Yeah, I think that we can both say decently confidently that there
Yes.
will not be a shutdown. That is one
Yeah.
of my most asked questions since I've been home for the holidays is there going to be
Yeah.
another government shutdown? We talked about this before. I grew up by NASA, so I have a ton of government employees that
Yeah.
live all on my street. And I'm like, if I were to predict anything, which that is not our jobs to necessarily predict, but it is to report. But I would say based on our previous reporting and where they're at and where negotiations lie, that a government shutdown would not be conducive to what either party wants to do at all.
No, it'll force them to talk to each other. The appropriators are yip yap yappity. They are not really the
Mhm.
issue right now.
No,
It's
they're
more,
really not, which is crazy.
which is crazy that the people who are in charge of the government funding are not the problem. Like you would think that they would be the problem. It's
Totally.
really not. It's a House versus Senate issue. It's coming up with numbers that work. It's then also, getting people who want to negotiate from conservative sides and from Democratic sides just in regular rank and file. Like there's a lot.
Hmm.
So, lots to look forward to. We're so excited for 2026. Thank you to everybody
Yes,
who has watched and listened to
tuned
us.
in
We
this
appreciate
year.
it.
Yeah,
Yes.
we love each and every one of our viewers. Let us know what we can make better in the new year, anything we can add, anything we could subtract, and we are open to any commentary because obviously this was our first year on this, and we want this to be the best show for all of y'all.
And make sure as always to like and comment and subscribe, follow us, read those stories we just plugged. And as always, read at WashingtonExaminer.com. So see you next year.
Bye.